time for what we like to call The World's Gone Mad. Of course, when we think of a world gone completely mad, we do tend to think of the novel and movie 1984, that dystopian world of government censorship and totalitarianism so vividly depicted by George Orwell, in which he describes this rather glum vision of our future.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face. Forever.
But in this day of robotics, AI and cyber technology, what sort of authoritarian dystopian boot will it be? A Chinese one, perhaps? Here are some Chinese robots practicing putting the boot in, as it were. Yes, China has launched its first humanoid robot soccer league in Beijing. The AI-controlled robots have the skills of 5 to 6-year-old children, for the time being. Meanwhile, another slightly more sinister Chinese robot has been showcased. I think this might be more what George Orwell had in mind. Yes, this mechanical death ball is armed with net guns, tear gas and smoke bombs, and can roll through water, bounce off walls, and never gets tired of chasing dissidents. The stuff of science fiction horror movies. And speaking of which, here in Australia we have our very own Orwellian e-safety commissioner who is relieved that the First Amendment doesn't apply in Australia, so she can ban everyone under 16 from using YouTube and social media. Sure sounds like Big Brother, or worse, Big Sister, to me. But there are, of course, far more efficient ways to get your teenage daughters off TikTok during meal times, like this. But over in the UK, what could be more Orwellian, more Big Brother, more dystopian than the police using human rights legislation to arrest people for cycling with their hands off the handlebars?
Cycling with their hands on the handlebars.
Yeah.
Okay. Places other road users at risk. Contravenes.
No, it doesn't. How does it? How does it? This is amazing. So, cycling no-handed violates Article 2 of the Human Rights Act. Is that the right to life?
No, I said it endangers people.
You said it
on the road.
You just said.
Perhaps the British police could find slightly more productive things to do, you know, like maybe try and get all those environmentally aware kiddies to actually clean up the mess they left behind at the ever so woke and ever so environmentally aware Glastonbury Music Festival. Yes, here's how today's youth care for the environment. Mind you, the truly toxic, obnoxious garbage wasn't on the ground at Glastonbury, it was on the stage, like this grub.
Aye, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF!
George Orwell's Big Brother was of course famous for inverting language, so I guess it's not all that surprising that Glastonbury, once the home of peace and love, is now all about bands calling out death chants to human beings. Almost as insane as this postmodern nonsense known as Queers for Palestine. Yes, that parade would last approximately 0 seconds in a free Palestine if the Palestinian Authority or Hamas had anything to do with it. Still, when it comes to not knowing your history, this girl takes the cake. Personally, holding a pro-Palestinian demonstration on an aeroplane might not be the best way to attract sympathy for your cause, given that back in the 1970s, Palestinian terrorists were responsible for an endless series of hijackings and bomb scares, terrorising passengers on TWA, on Pan Am, on Lufthansa, on Air France, on Gulf Air. The list went on, including, of course, the famous Entebbe hijacking, where Israeli commandos brilliantly rescued the passengers. Benjamin Netanyahu's brother died as a hero there. And back in the 1970s, hijackings and airline terrorism was so prevalent that an international federation of airline pilots threatened a global strike unless better security measures were introduced, which is partly why today's airline security is so stringent. So maybe holding a pro-Palestinian demonstration on an airplane ain't such a bright PR idea. Speaking of failed PR moves, here's how another group of blue-rinsed lefties decided to hijack a London Pride truck. And I guess this is what they mean when they say it's easy to get carried away with these sorts of demonstrations these days.
No, it's pretending to care about minorities and oppressed groups while they're enabling a genocide. They're here in London Pride. Keep pushing.
Still, in this modern world of relevance deprivation, there are plenty of other ways of drawing attention to yourself. You could always get a pet raven. Is it a bird? Is it a rapper? No, it's plain bonkers Cardi B at a Paris fashion show this week. Clearly, Cardi has struggled to find any relevance since she foolishly agreed to back Kamala Harris last year by reading this deeply heartfelt speech from her iPhone.
I believe in every word that comes out of her mouth. She's passionate, she's compassionate, she shows empathy, and most of all, she is not delusional.
No, nothing delusional about Kamala Harris other than the delusion that she thought she might win the presidency. But speaking about delusional, here's the brother of the director of the latest version of Superman, convinced that if he sells it as a woke story about illegal immigrants, those anti-Trump audiences will come flocking.
It is exactly what the movie is about, I think, that, like, we support our people, you know? We love our immigrants. Yes, Superman is an immigrant. And yes, the people that we support in this country are immigrants. And if you don't like that, then you're not American.
Is it a bird? Is it an MS-13 gang member? No, it's super woke. Oh dear, where's Christopher Reeves when you need him? I hope that character isn't relying on a share of profits to pay his mortgage. But delusional isn't quite as bad as deranged, which leads us, of course, to Trump derangement syndrome and our top TDS tantrums of the week. Hard to go past this fragrant and delightful character.
Well, you just couldn't call, could you, Magus? You just couldn't help out a few thousand or million people who are going to go hungry and are going to live in the streets. Thanks, MAGA.
Oh dear. Meanwhile, here's chronic TDS sufferer Rosie O'Donnell, who, despite fleeing Trump's America to go and live in Ireland, still can't seem to get Trump out of her head. You see, the tragic Texas floods were all the fault of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill.
These are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law.
But if you think she's a bit kooky, wait till you get a load of the Red Brigade, the Red Lipstick Brigade, that is.
Hello, it's the Master. The reason I have red lipstick on is because I'm at the demonstration in Traverse City. There are thousands of us. And red lipstick, I was informed last night by my friend Jen, was a form of resistance when Hitler was trying to take over the world. He didn't like women wearing red lipstick. So I've decided red lipstick. Everybody put on red lipstick to show resistance against you-know-who.
Ah, yes, you know who. But hang on, maybe this is catching on.
Are you coming to the tree where Dad man called out for his love to flee?
Wow, red lippy, what a powerful tool of TDS resistance. The emphasis being, of course, on the word tool. Still, nothing says resistance and sticking it to the man like being a professor from Minnesota University, putting a tea towel around your shoulders and urging your pupils to dismantle the United States.
Of all liberation struggles and the movements that seek a world of justice, equality, and peace, that seek to dismantle the United States, I hope you seek to dismantle the United States. And if that isn't your politics, okay?
Speaking of Kamala Harris, who of course might have single-handedly dismantled both America and the Western alliance if she'd won the election, we learned this week of another disastrous interview Kamala Harris held during her campaign, along with all the other disastrous interviews. This one was with cool hip podcaster Kareem Rama. It did not go well.
So I said yes based on the fact that it would be a good story, and also they both had good takes.
What happened with Kamala?
Her take was really confusing and weird and not good. And so mutually agreed that we shouldn't publish it.
I see.
And I got lucky because I didn't want to be blamed for her losing.
Not good and weird. In Trento, in the northeast of Italy, it turns out they have a bizarre medieval ritual where they dunk the worst politician of the year into the river in a wooden cage.
16 che il giudice Kagol ha sentenziato in un crescendo di spettacolarità. Le roste dell'Adige stipate in ogni lembo verde, condannati alla tonca il consigliere provinciale Claudio Cia, perché, a detta della giuria, ha prima sfidato il sindaco Andreatta e poi ha scelto di rimanere sulla comoda poltrona di Piazza Dante.
I guess Kamala Harris can be thankful for small mercies, lucky she wasn't running in Trento. And speaking of dodgy politicians, or rather doji politicians, have a listen to this exchange about the ridiculous grants that were being handed out by US taxpayers until Elon Musk came along with his chainsaw.
Let's do another one. This one is called hashtag Transcendent Health, adapting an LGB plus inclusive teen pregnancy prevention program for transgender boys. I can't even say this without laughing. Do you think that that is a useful form of our tax spend?
I am not familiar with that grant, but I think bench research, government investment in scientific and pharmaceutical
teen pregnancy
research.
for transgender boys. Do you think that that is a useful spend of our tax dollars?
I think government investment in all kinds of scientific research is of the utmost importance.
Including pregnancy prevention for transgender boys. Okay.
Yes, it truly is an Orwellian world gone mad. Welcome back. Yes, it's time to check in on Trump's America in American Renaissance. Joining me now is Natalie Winters, co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room. Natalie, it's always terrific to see you, but wow, we've got cover-ups left, right and centre, or so it would appear. Let's kick off with this extraordinary story. Yesterday, so we talked a lot about the cover-up of Joe Biden, his mental decline, his health, all for the 4 years. Who was actually running the White House? I guess we'll find out one day. But yesterday, Kevin O'Connor, who was Joe Biden's doctor, the one who kept reassuring us all was fine, all was dandy, no problem with old Joe, he's rocking along. Turns out he went before Congress and he pleaded the fifth when he was asked about the cover-up, or was there any cover-up, or was anybody telling him what to say? Have a listen, Natalie.
Were you ever told to lie about the president's health?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based upon the physician-patient privilege and in reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer.
Did you ever believe the president was unfit to execute his duties as president?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer.
Natalie, we've all watched enough American cop shows to know that pleading the fifth means, oops, I'm as good as guilty. What did you make of it, Natalie?
Well, shouldn't those be rather easy questions to answer, right? I feel like this is one of those moments where it's both totally unbelievable that we're even at a moment like this, but it's also totally believable, I think, for two reasons. One, the Democrats lie. They love having weak presidents because the deep state, right, these unelected bureaucrats can sort of take them over, treat them like listless vessels and implement their agenda. But also, I don't even really blame Kevin O'Connor. You know why? Because what are congressional Republicans going to do about it? Time and time again, whether it's witnesses like him, people involved in the Hunter Biden affair, people involved in the government weaponization committee, they've gotten away scot-free, and the chairman of the committee goes and writes the book and then pumps it and tries to profit off of it. So I almost understand why the guy's feeling like he can act like this without repercussions, but I also think it's important to remember that while there's so much focus, right, on the mental decline of Joe Biden, make no mistake, it's equally concerning that all of the people around him were very well aware, they're very in their right minds, and they intentionally set out to destroy the United States by implementing policies that wrecked us, whether immigration, fiscally, or on the international stage. So there's a lot of layers here, and it's hard to unpack, but as an American, it's embarrassing to watch that.
Now, Natalie, I've been dying all week, if that's the right word, to get your take on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, cover-up, non-event. What is it? I mean, let's have a listen. First of all, so suddenly, after months and months, we're told, no, actually nothing to see. No, it was all dandy. It was all fine. Maybe, maybe not. I want to hear your opinion. But here's Jeffrey Epstein's brother, who's not entirely convinced that it was suicide. Have a listen.
He said, you know it's suicide when you see it. That's basically what he said. So the questions that popped into my mind was, first of all, number one, how many suicides has he seen? Number one. Two, is he a forensic pathologist? Dr. Roman, who was a city pathologist who did the autopsy, she came out of the autopsy and said she couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. When Kash Patel came out with that statement, I laughed at how stupid it was.
So, Natalie, give us your take on the entire week of Jeffrey Epstein. Did he commit suicide? Didn't he? What about all the men who are supposedly involved on the list, Epstein's list? Take it away.
Sure. Well, I think the release of this information only adds to the sort of conspiratorial nature and frankly, outright, I think we can call it a debacle, especially coming from DOJ and the FBI, right? This was an undated, unsigned memo that they released on a holiday weekend through a sort of a legacy media outlet, Axios, and they hoped that it would just kind of go away. But because MAGA is founded in the idea that accountability, right, is rooted in actual prison sentences for people who have committed crimes, not these sort of strongly worded letters, our base was rightfully outraged and upset. And I've been saying as much. I think a lot of even some of President Trump's strongest supporters didn't really take the line that he was pushing during his cabinet meeting that, Americans should just move on and not be obsessed with it. It is patently obvious that for a man who had so much connection with both domestic political figures, foreign political figures, also with the CIA, whether it was business deals, working with officials there. I mean, for decades, you're talking about a man who came very, very close, if not essentially was inside the inner circle of the inner workings of the American political, financial, Hollywood, you name it, elite, that not 1 ounce of documentation, not one document exists. They're just going to say, oops, there's nothing to see here, move on. I think this might be the largest misread of the MAGA base. And I think that this needs to be seriously rectified because right now, I'm not seeing any difference in the Trump administration's response to the Epstein list and that of Joe Biden and that of Barack Obama, et cetera, and that's extremely concerning.
Unbelievable story, Natalie. I just want to know where Jeffrey Epstein got all his money from. But anyway, another extraordinary story. The Democrats are blaming Donald Trump for the Texas floods. Here's Carolyn Levitt.
Unfortunately, in the wake of this once-in-a-generation natural disaster, we have seen many falsehoods pushed by Democrats such as Senator Chuck Schumer and some members of the media. Blaming President Trump for these floods is a depraved lie, and it serves no purpose during this time of national mourning.
So there's Carolyn Levitt there at the White House. Natalie, Donald Trump to blame for the floods now.
It's absolutely insane. Donald Trump and Doge, right? And I guess anyone who voted for Trump somehow shares a compartmentalized version of the blame. Look, let's be frank. The primary victims of this flood are not people that I think Democrats really have a lot of compassion or sympathy for. We saw as much. We saw government officials mocking this camp because it catered, as they said, to white Christian girls. They tried to make it racial. It's absolutely disgusting. And frankly, if you actually drill down, you could actually see that the National Weather Service was actually overstaffed. this really was an issue of technology and needing to modernize the government. And frankly, I think it drives the point home that instead of sending millions of dollars to every corner of the earth, whether it's to Ukraine for flood response and emergency management services, or I don't know, to help refugees plow them into the country, every corner of this country, we should be investing at home. So counties that live in very dangerous and high-risk flood areas actually have usable and reasonable alert systems instead of prioritizing Ukraine over Texans. I pray for Texans.
And Natalie, you left out there the whatever it was, transgender operas in Colombia or whatever other nonsense it was. Always great to chat to you.
Too many to count.
Exactly. Natalie Winters, thanks so much.